so awesome. Thank you. Um, well, there might. Now we're okay. All right. Um, yeah, and I'm seeing on my mic, it looked like it was going full bar and clipping. Now it seems like better. And once again, the, here's the only thing that I did. I closed Chrome. For whatever reason, Google Chrome, yeah, I see. Well, because I tried to turn it down like a little bit. Hopefully this will help a little bit with the, I'm not quiet anymore. But for whatever reason, Google Chrome tries to snag the microphone, and it just, for whatever reason, that's hopefully. So I just opened Chrome back up so I have the manual again. And tell me if it starts borking the sound or not. Because yeah, me and Google Chrome on this computer are starting to get mad. And the funny thing was, I went in to shut down something on the microphone settings, which I found just saying like don't allow access, then allow access. It threw up a privacy settings prevent you from changing the microphone. I was like, what? Since when does privacy settings impact the microphone on my computer? Because I haven't changed anything. The only thing I did was installed a couple of outstanding updates yesterday. So I don't know. So let me check this camera because this is a camera that gets moved all the time. So make sure it's kind of set up. Looking at our awesome, cool little printer here. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Wester. It's about to the point where I'm just going to start like shutting everything down rather than just shutting OBS off. I'm just going to shut everything down and bring it back up and hope for the best before. Yep, I got my Crimpin' Ain't Easy shirt on. I should have had it on last stream. But because now we're almost done with the crimping and we didn't even have to crimp. We're really just plugging in wires. But this is where we're at so far. All of our tool head wiring's there. We just need to add a couple of zip ties just to keep our wires up so they don't catch on the rear post. And then we need to still add our Raspberry Pi and our Picobillical panel plate. Good morning, Pez. No, we are not dealing with iced coffee. We've got the full brew here. Yeah, but the thing is, Chewy, is the nice thing about using Chrome is I could be looking at something on my laptop and be able to pull up that same page through history on my streaming computer. So, yeah, exactly. So it used to be that the microphone wouldn't be the primary and it'd pick up one of the camera mics. Thanks to Ian Douglas, we got that to start happening. Yeah, so here we are. We've made it a long way. We need to finish working on our Raspberry Pi setup and just a few more things to get added. Yes, Western One, Bang merch. We do have some merch. The only thing that's open right now, and you can see, whoops, right here in the corner, we should have a merch link and a quick teaser over here. I have coffee cups and stickers available for sale through my Stream Elements merch store today. I've ordered a couple of the hats and the shirt because I need to make sure that that logo will size right on the shirt and not look blown out. and as well as the hats, because the hats do embroidery. So I may have to switch to I have a different version of the logo that just does a color transition blend versus having the like vertical rain lines, kind of like a matrix logo. And I think that might be easier for them to do the embroidery with. Morning, Timor. Welcome in, Chewy, Modlight. I saw Createx Brit, Pez Liz, Sis, Westery One, Ram Online. I'm sorry. I know Mrs. Dragon's here. She made a comment. So Mrs. Dragon and her brother are on the way to regional bowling for Special Olympics. So good luck, Eagle. I gave him a call right before the stream started, but we'll give him a shout out on here. Good luck today at bowling. And folks, we are going to have a quasi hard stop right about 1 o'clock Eastern time. So in about 3 hours, so that we can all please go over to YouTube and participate on Steve Build stream on YouTube. If anybody can pull up that YouTube link for his channel and post it, I would appreciate it. It is going to be one of the few public, open to the full public Charlie's Angels streams. So Charlie's Angels is his subscriber only stream, but it's going to be fully public today because it is a memorial stream for Charlie, who passed away during Earth. And he passed away just right before Earth. And yeah, so if you can make it there, great. If somebody can try and grab the link, that'll be great. If not, give me a little bit here and I'll pull it up on YouTube and throw that link in there so that we can head over there. Thank you very much, Ram Online. There we go. Yeah, Charlie's definitely going to be missed. It's going to be hard watching build streams, not having Charlie come over and supervise the build. Yeah, it is definitely to memorialize Charlie. I think he's going to have I think he's going to be doing some charity stuff so that you can make donations to the local animal shelter. So I just want to try and be there because I really do appreciate Steve Builds and all he does for the community and his builds, as well as Charlie. Who doesn't like seeing everybody's animals pop onto stream here and there, whether it's a doggo or a cat or what have you. Yeah. And if you ever listen to Rob Mink when he streams occasionally, you'll hear his parrot in the background chatting away. So okay, Westery, that's right. You traveled this week. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Now, one of the things that we need to do before we get too much further that I almost forgot was your Raspberry Pi is going to go right here. And there's a fan that gets mounted down here now to provide cooling over the Raspberry Pi. Now, I looked and looked and looked, and there is, let me come up here so I can show you guys what I'm going to be talking about. Yeah. So there's the design that they use here is kind of a weird, not a weird design, but they are set up to use a Raspberry Pi 02, and it gets mounted on top of a 4-port USB expander module. Right, and then there's a little board that gets added onto the GPIO pins that allows you to run your power, and this little white connector down here is an ADXL connector that connects via this tiny ribbon cable. So the issue that we have Let me switch over here now and I'll show you. So the ADXL will connect with this little ribbon cable. It's a cool little setup, but LVO kits are not shipping with the Raspberry Pi right now. Will I do it again at 8:35? So yes, Mrs. Dragon, if you can ping me one more time at 8:35, I shall. So LDO motors normally will ship, well, used to ship the kits with Raspberry Pi 3s or Raspberry Pi 02Ws. They are not doing that at this time because of the cost of the Raspberry Pis. Because of that, you're also not getting the USB expander slot. And I was looking online Thursday after stream, and the only place I could find those USB expander sleds that look exactly like the one that was in the manual is in the UK. And there's no way I'm getting that anytime soon. So my plan is to simply use a Raspberry Pi 3B. Thank you there, Pezliz. So we're going to use the Raspberry Pi 3B, and I was looking at the various mounts that they have. And if I use, I'll say the standard style of mount, where'd the other part go? Here we go. So if I use the standard mount, which is a printed DIN clip, the DIN rail connector, and the bracket, and I'm just going to mock this up and set it up here. Right? And then we take our Raspberry Pi 3B and we add our little hat to it. LVO is not slipping. It's just a lot of places aren't shipping with a Raspberry Pi anymore. Some of them are starting to ship with alternatives, but it's just been a cost situation. So I'm going to set that in there, and you can see how high that sits up. And I'm going to take a ruler and just go right across where our connector is. And bring you guys in here so you can see that there's really not going to be much room from the ruler and the connector. It's really, really close. And the ADXL at least comes out, but this connector right here is a 3-pin connector, and there's no way you're going to get wires in there without them being really cramped down, right? So what I'm going to do is we're going to go back to, I'll say, a little bit of the older style, which is how it's done on mine in the V01, is we're going to use this mount. The Raspberry Pi will mount on these 4 lugs. We'll put some VHB tape right there. And what that will do is we'll get mounted a lot lower in here, which gives us plenty of room for any of the connectors on the top. And this fan is also going to be shooting right over the board instead of right under the board. So yeah, it's a cost availability issue. I would be surprised if we don't start seeing them in there soon, with the cost of them coming down and the availability. Like right now, you can get Raspberry Pi 0Ws in quantity. I know because Mrs. Dragon bought 3 at Micro Center the other day when she went and forgot and told them to email the receipt. So I saw that she'll be coming home with 3 more Raspberry Pi Zeros. But you still can't find the Raspberry Pi 02W, which is the better option for our 3D printers, because on the 0W, you cannot run input shaper directly through it. You would have to do some type of dongle, like I created here, which uses a Raspberry Pi Pico to do all the computations, and then it just sends the results to the Raspberry Pi via USB. But the two W's you can get. I'm sorry, the two W's you can get to run input shaper. Yeah, and once again, that expander board, I was a little surprised that it's not there. I mean, this this board came in the kit, but the other one didn't, and I could not find it. Like I said, I couldn't find it anywhere other than in the UK. It's not being stocked that I can tell by any of the resellers, which just is a pain in the butt. Now, I do have a couple of things coming in. I did go out to Pi Shop USA and I ordered a couple of Raspberry Pi 4Bs, just the 2 gig models, and it's an extender, and basically it's an L-shaped bracket. Okay, actually I think it's L-shaped this way, and it's got the HDMI and the 2 USB connectors, and the Raspberry Pi Zero just plugs into the side, and it gives you the same form factor as a 3B. So that's another option that you can do for these that gets you your 4 USB ports and an Ethernet port again. Now you have to be careful on some of those boards because it'll show 4. It has the same form factor and it shows 4, but you can only use 3 of the USB ports. One of the USB ports doesn't. And I don't know what the limiting factor there is, but you just have to be aware of it. So let's go ahead and work on getting our fan installed right down here. And it's a simple clamping mechanism that we're going to use. And I did go ahead and put the 4 heat set inserts in here. And what's going to happen is we're going to have this clamp that's going to clamp around the rail with 2 M3 screws. Whoops, they're going to go in from this side. And then the fan's going to go here. We're going to screw through the fan into the other heat set inserts. And that gives us our setup for the fan. So this first part just sits right down in the groove here. And then the second part, the long piece here goes into the groove, and it just creates that sandwich. It's fairly tight fit there. Here we go. And you'll just kind of move it around and find the decent place so you'll get the right airflow. And we're going to use what screw? M3 by 12s to clamp these two pieces together, and then M3 by 16s to mount the fan. All right, let me check through chat here. Yeah, you can get the 02Ws, but they're still not coming in mass quantities just yet. Yeah, the Raspberry Pis are based out of the UK. That's for definite sure. And that's why there's there's the Pi Hut, which is based in the UK, but PiShop.us is a US reseller of all the Raspberry Pi stuff. And I keep seeing notices of Raspberry Pi doing like pop-up stores and stuff like that in the UK. I would love it if they did any here in the States. I'm gonna have to use my ball driver on this one. What the keyboard version? They're cheaper, faster, but bigger. Yeah, that's the is it the Pi 400? I have one of those as well. And my plan was you could install carbide motion on it. And I was going to have it out in the shed with a put it out in the shed with a cheap monitor and use it as the controller for my CNC. So I could just send my CNC files out there and then just run that as my controller for the Picobillical CNC versus having to take my laptop out there all the time. And you're talking about the Libra computer. I've got one. I thought about putting it in this computer or in this printer, but decided that going with a Raspberry Pi would be a lot easier. Because if they ever wanted to reflash it, they could flash Mainsail OS directly to it like what we're going to do. But my La Potato here, a couple of downsides of the La Potato is it doesn't have the camera interface. Or a DSI, so you'd still have to use an HDMI on this. And you lose, in essence, one of your USB ports for a wireless dongle because this board does not have wireless on it. However, it's fully GPIO pin capable. And the other thing that I really like about this is this right here. It's got an eMMC socket, so that's a 128 gig eMMC card, which is a lot faster than running an SD card in it. So these are really good. But I'm going to use this for a different project. I've used the CB1 modules. You can get the Raspberry Pi, I think it's a 4B style sled for the CB1s. But yeah, those are always good. And the one that has the CB1 already on it is their Pi, is the Big Tree Tech Pi. Well, meaning it doesn't have the CSI flat ribbon connector mod light. You can get it to work, but it doesn't have the CSI ribbon connector. Hot cocoa Ovaltine, one banana chopped up with EDC, with your EDC knife, bite-sized pieces, breakfast of champions. There you go. And the other thing with the La Potato is it's a little bit harder to set up for our purposes than a Raspberry Pi is. Because you can use the Raspberry Pi imager, but you're not putting a standard Raspberry Pi image on it. They have their version of Raspbian. Not hard, but it's just a little bit more to tinker with. And that's the nice thing with the Big Tree Tech Pi is it does allow you to run the 12 or 24 volt directly to it, so you don't have to do any type of down convert. Where's the coffee? Well, there's the cup of coffee that we've been drinking, and this was right up to the edge. And we've got our second and tertiary cups. We're going to be wired today, as always on a Saturday. Okay, so our fan. Always remember with your fan that there's normally an arrow that shows the directionality of the fan, and if there isn't, pretty much the side where your label is, that's the output, right? So the air is going to come through the side with no sticker and blow out the side with the sticker. So that's the side that we want, and we're going to want to keep our wire out of the way. So I'm going to put the wire side down when I screw this into this plate here. I'm going to use M3 by 16 screws for this. Yes, Coffee. You set printers. Which printer did you set on fire? Was that one of your Focus? Um, yeah, you can use the onboard CAN bus with them. Well, there's the IO CAN on the original boards that you would need to use to run the CSI, or not the CSI, but the SPI display that's made to use with the CB1. And if you've got the CB1 2 or 2.2, you don't even need that. You can just go directly into the board. But I like that they're adding this fan, and this is a good retrofit to a 1.0 or a 0.1. Now, okay, Mrs. Dragon. So I'm going to get a little loud as I make this statement, but this is a shout out to Eagle Hall. Good luck today in your Special Olympics regional bowling tournament. We're rooting for you. We got the whole crowd here that's rooting for you this Saturday morning. So good luck and best wishes today on your bowling. Yep. Intro for the bowl. Good luck today, Eagle. So his real name's James Hall Jr., but when he was born, his dad was a full bird colonel, which is the eagle on the shoulders. And so Eagle was always called the little eaglet or the eagle. So we just all call him Eagle. So yes. Okay, and so this fan, it is a 24-volt fan, and we're going to plug it into the fan 3 header. And once again, kudos to Big Tree Tech for providing the schematic directly on the box. This right here is awesome. A lot more board manufacturers need to start doing this, especially things like these the MKS Robin Nano boards, especially the ones that are tweaked for different vendor machines that are, we'll say, OEM boards for different vendor machines. They really need to start providing these things. But we're going to go into fan 3. And so on our board, we've got, it's funny, it says laser. It's not laser. This is for the Raspberry Pi UART connection. And then you've got fan 1, fan 2, and fan 3. We're going to go into fan 3. And we're just going to double, triple, quadruple check the polarity. So the positive is towards the right, the negative is towards me. So we're going to make sure that the polarity on our wires is correct, which it is. We'll slide our top off here so we can run our cable down in our trough. We'll get that plugged in. We'll just route that into our cable channel. And our 24-volt that comes up to our Picobillical is way long. I was debating whether I cut it and recrimp it or not, and I just folded it up in here. It should be perfectly fine. And I'm just going to slide this back on to keep these cables from going everywhere. You may need to add a couple of more things in it in a little bit, but we'll deal with that later. Next up, before I mount the Pi, I want to do the Picobillical. because it'll be easier to get to things without having that other Pi here. And whoops. Morning, K2 Kevin. Welcome on in. That is true. It can, because it's basically the designed communications point, right? So we're pretty much in the manual going to skip through all of the electronics because languages. The V0 has that information. The LDO motors documentation is what we're going to use for our wiring. And we're down here to installing the Picobillical. And it talks about installing some wires on this board before you mount it because it'll be a little bit easier that way. And once again, I want to show you all this board. So you've got your 14-pin connector up here. And this is the main connector to the tool head. And then we have a couple of other connectors back here. And this connector back here provides ground, 3.3 volt logic. And then these next two are used for a filament runout sensor. So we don't have that on this particular build, but it's nice to know that you can build this cable to have the power. Say if you're going to run like a smart orbiter with a filament runout sensor, you'll have those cables right there that you can add in. And I also like that, once again, we've got all the schematics here so we know what GPIO pin's going where. That's good because, once again, this board has a Raspberry Pi 2040 built into it. So this is a standalone MCU. Okay, so the things that we need to add to this board are the motor wire, because there is not a driver on here. We are connecting our motor cable directly to our SKR Pico. So in a CAN bus, you would actually have an MCU at the tool head, and you would have a stepper driver for your extruder motor at the tool head. So we're going to plug in our motor. We're going to plug in a power cord here that's going to provide the 5-volt power to our Raspberry Pi. So that'll be this cable here, and we've got 5-volt out on this side, ground on this side. So what's happening is we're going to bring 24-volt power up to this board, and then from this board, we're going to provide 5-volt power back down to the Raspberry Pi. We do have connectors on either side. These are our RGB connectors for 3-pin RGB connections. And then we'll have our USB-C. We will be using this because this is how the Raspberry Pi is going to talk to this as a secondary MCU. Awesome. Thank you, Mrs. Dragon. That's awesome. I am glad that he is excited. I hope that cheers him on a little bit today. And I'm going to need to break out my... There. I'm going to have to break out the iFixit toolkit because that's another one of the small connector size or screw socket sizes. Thank you to Evil Diesel for the iFixit toolkit, by the way. We haven't used it too often on stream, but it has definitely come in handy. So this is just a standard screw down terminal. So we're just going to back these screws off to open the wire ports there. And then we're going to stick these two connectors in. in there. So one in and then the other. Fiddly and finicky. And trying to get it at the right height and angle to get them pushed in. Want to make sure that they're pushed in all the way, and if they're pushed all the way in, and you see how we have some exposed metal from the ferrules there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this back out, and on your ferrules, you'll get these little, horizontal line marks from the crimping tool. So all I'm going to do is go the first horizontal mark on each pin and cut it, and that'll shorten these pins so that when we stick them in all the way, we don't have any exposed metal hanging out the terminal block. And so we just shorten those up a little bit, and we'll get those lined up again and back in there. And now you'll see how they go in, and you're not seeing very much, if any, metal sticking out of that terminal block. That's what you want to do. That'll keep you from potentially having any shorts or arcs across those wires. Okay, Westery One, be safe, sis. Okay, do the little tug test. That one's good. Now on the bigger terminal blocks here, this is where we're going to bring our 24 volt in. And once again, I kind of looped the 24 volt line in here just because we have cable for days. I'm just going to pull that out some so that I can get these lined up and in. And the power in is on the bottom and the ground is at the top. So I'll have to get these lined up as appropriate and get them in there. Okay. So we've got our umbilical board set up. Once again, we've had a couple of jumpers over here on the side. These are for the two fans at the spool head, and they're both set to 24 volt. There's a jumper right here next to the USB-C pin, and that's to tell it that you're taking power for the board from the USB. We do not have that in place right now because we're going to be feeding it 24 volt. So all of our basic connections are here. Now all we need to do is take our plate and put that in place to cover up the back pins to protect it on the inside. And we'll be able to set this in place. Bring up our power cord. That one up, this one down over here. Route it around nicely. Kind of set that in place. We are going to have some screws that will come in on either side. So we'll go ahead and get that going. So doesn't tell me what screws to use. But I believe they are like M3x6 or M3x8. We'll grab some M3x8. Hey, Chris, you're alive. Good morning. Good morning. Yep, 8 should work. Yep, 8s will work just fine. 10s would probably also work, but the 8s will get us there. Once again, I'm going to use my ball end screw just because it's going to be easier to get in, and it's going to be a little fiddly. You're not going to probably be able to see this that much. But there's slots on either side, and those slots will line up with our heat set inserts that we put into, maybe I'll be able, that we put into the underside of the motor mounts. Okay. That's good. Now this is our E motor. It's about, I don't know, 8 inches too long, but we'll get this routed and wrapped in here some. Bring it around with our other motor wires that we have there. And remember, our E motor is the top motor connection here. We're going to plug that in. And then, like I said, we'll just be able to kind of route our wire around here a little bit. Match it up with our other wires that we had coming around for our motor wires. Help keep everything nice and tidy. That plugged in. Slide this back up for now. Now we'll be ready to mount our Raspberry Pi. And the easiest way to do that is we're just going to use some M2x10 self-tapping screws to mount it on the plate. If you mount it this way, it's going to be kind of cantilevered. So we want to mount it more like this. Okay, so we'll get a few screws going in here. I tend to go through like Tradeport Direct, but there is, I want to say, not Comgrow, the Solval folks, believe it or not, are refurbing them and selling them at a pretty decent price. It's like about $100. So yeah, but I go through Tradeport Direct for auctions, and they are, um, they may be missing parts or what have you, or you can go through and buy them from, like I said, the Solval, or not sure. I don't think Comgrow's doing it anymore. I think that relationship got resolved, but Solval's been doing refurbs, and that's where I got the last two from, and everything's been in the box. So you can just get some deals if you go out there and you look at the auctions and you play the auctions right. And I have seen places that sell like pallets of 10. I just figured if I had a pallet of printers show up that Mrs. Dragon would get very, very upset with me. Um, well, quite honestly, the Ender 3, there's several mods to mount a stealth burner to an Ender 3, where that Anycubic, there's only a single mod. And as you can tell, we're having issues with that mod, and trying to get that set up effectively and right. And I'm really going to have to try and play around with CAD to see if I can make that work. All right. Apparently, it's time to start with the telemarketing call. Hey, good morning, Seven Sins Gaming. Welcome on in. So we've got our Raspberry Pi mounted here. What we're going to do is we're just going to put some VHB tape on here, find the right place, and just stick it down. So, like I said, that's kind of the old school mounting that we used on the V01. But it gives us the clearance to the top that we wouldn't have otherwise. Just going to put a little strip bottom and at the top. Yeah. And like I said, there's plenty of stealth burner mounts out there for an Ender 3. And that way you can enjoy the direct drive of the stealth burner. And down the road, if you decide to, you can even go full Ender wire. And Chris, thanks for taking care of that for me last night. I was I was definitely not expecting you to jump on that last night. I was getting ready to head off to bed, and it happened to click in my head of, oh, I never saw that other email come in. So I figured I'd ping you while I thought about it. So I have this tendency of forgetting things when I sleep. I think it's a sign of old age. Okay. I'm just going to try and find a good spot to put this down. Make sure it's lined up with the fan as best as possible. And kind of straight up and down. Apply a little downward pressure. Exactly. Exactly. Converting your Industry Pro to a switch wire. Yeah, I've done 2 of those on stream. It's a pretty good little change up. And like we did on the other one, this is another smallish terminal, and I know these are going to be long. I should have clipped these off before, but I'll clip them off now. Once again, we're just taking the first kind of section off where it ribs. And always put your finger over the top there so that that little piece that gets clipped off doesn't go flying around your room, or because it's metal, land on a board and wind up shorting something out later. And heaven forbid it should go in the coffee, because that would be bad. We don't want to be drinking any metal. And on this connector, we're 5-volt is towards the trough, ground is towards the rail. So that's how we're going to insert these in there. And of course, I put away the iFixit that I'm going to need again. There we go. You screw down. Tug, and bada bing bang, bada boom. That, I believe, is the end of our wiring, other than putting the Picobillical cable at the spool head, which we'll do next. So in essence, all of our wiring on the back panel is now done. Well, excuse me, we've got to do our USB cables. Almost forgot that, yes. Pepper 2410, our, yep. So the USB cables, got a couple of different ones here. We make sure that we've got our USB-A to USB-C. One of our cables is going to come over here to our Raspberry Pi excuse me, to the SKR Pico. And the other one will go up here to our Picobillical board. I'm just going to try and put these in the two lower USB jacks. That leaves the two upper ones if we go to do anything else down the way. Slide our lid off so that we can place our USB cable in the trough. Trough's getting pretty full. Okay. Now there's our full back wiring with our USB cables in place. Everything looks nice and tidy. And now the last piece, and once again, this is the piece that I think makes this so much of a great build, is one 14-pin cable at the top back here. And the other side goes right here on top with our Pico umbilical board. And there you go. There is a length of split loom wire here that we will put on here afterwards. I'm just holding off for now. It's just to tie it up, make it nice. We'll add a couple of zip ties here, but I think we'll do that as we start working on the software, because we can do that while things are going. Yeah, just remember, well, yeah, I have plenty of motors with the pressed on pulleys. I've got a pulley remover that I bought. For the Raspberry Pi imager, and yeah, this talks about just doing the basic Raspberry Pi OS, and then coming back in and doing Kaya to do the rest of the install. I'm actually going to just do the Mainsail install on this because I don't know, I like Mainsail. I don't know who it's going to, but I've got a 16 gig SanDisk card here, and Um, I believe I got it off of Amazon. There it is. I believe I got this off of Amazon, and it's one like Steve Bilge uses. It's designed for like RC airplane propellers. Um, but it works great at pulling those gears. But I believe it's like Great Plains or something like that. But it's made for pulling things off of like shafts, like propellers and stuff. So I'm going to take and get this started on my MacBook over here. So just card reader, get this plugged in, and we'll get this started with the Raspberry Pi imager. And once again, we're just going to use the Raspberry Pi imager to drop Mainsail OS. Rather than do the basic install and then add, add everything via Kaya. So we go in here and we go to other specific purpose OS. Change this up. Other specific purpose OS, 3D printing, and we'll scroll down until we find Mainsail OS. And I'm doing the 32-bit version. You'd only do the 64-bit version really if you're doing the 4B or 5B. Make sure you pick the right storage. You can go in and configure your information. Okay, and that write is started. I want to say I just bought it off of Amazon. Yeah, so if I'm going to put Clipper on a Raspberry Pi, I think just doing it via the Mainsail OS works perfectly fine. If you're going to go and do it if you're doing it on something else like a Radsa or a Libre computer, then yes, definitely using Kaya is probably the best way to go. Because you'll have it's a non-standard, non-Raspberry Pi OS that you're putting on it. So really, really need a lighter up here. Folks, I will be right back. I need to go grab a lighter. And I'm back. Almost had a catastrophic failure of the junk drawer. Then no lighter. So if you're not careful, these sprays will just keep fraying. So you kind of have to hit them with a little bit of heat to keep them from fraying out real bad. Just don't burn yourself in the process, please. And Chris, I saw that. I think we could post stream a video. I think that would be pretty cool. And you'll notice I didn't take this all the way down to the end of the connectors, and I did that for a reason, because the the wires flay out, and you don't want to really crank down on those wires. You want them to stay flayed out like that. So we'll take a zip tie and add it on each side. I do actually happen to have a welder. Used it yet. One of my neighbors, they were grandma just had to move out of her house into, I believe they wound up going into an assisted living facility. And when they were going through cleaning out the house and stuff, they found like 2 welders down in the basement. So they kept one and gave one to me, because we had gone over and helped a lot in trying to get the stuff cleaned out. So I thought that was kind of cool. And now you got to get all of this sprayed junk. And this is why you have to like burn the ends of this stuff a little bit, because if not, it continues to fray out like that. So just a little dab of heat will do you. Put those there. We're in the verify section now of the process. Got 4 MIG welders and a stick welder. This is a it'll plug into a 110. It's like a Harbor Freight. Front fell off. What do you mean the front fell off? So we added our cable wrap. Once again, we didn't take it all the way down to the bottom to let the cables flare out to their pin locations. We're just going to take another zip tie here and just kind of bring our wires in to the metal knurled thing here. We're just trying to keep them up so that they don't hit the motor mounts on the side. So Chris, what do you mean by the front fall off? So we haven't put any panels on yet. We're gonna get the off the junk drawer. No, it was more of I didn't have a lighter in the junk drawer, but I did find one over by the candles. So Mrs. Dragon has a tendency of grabbing things out of the junk drawer and not returning them to the junk drawer. And so I've got we'll say collections of pens in the junk drawer and like 4 cups around the house. I've got a cup up here of a bunch of pens. Yeah, that kind of failure. Yeah, it's just things weren't where I expected them to be. Leave. And we'll get into some more of this. We'll have the English. So hard sometimes. We'll get into the panels and stuff, so we still have a lot more to do with our wiring. Well, not wiring, but our fasteners. So how about this? There's your 3mm inside diameter reverse Bowden tube. Very nice. So, and this is where I was telling you that there's a little slot back here that hopefully your Bowden tube fits in. Yep, it does. And what I'm going to tell you to do is bring your all the way to the front and all the way to one side or the other. Doesn't matter. But we're trying to find the length for our Bowden tube. There we go. So you don't want a whole extra amount, but you do want it to be able to go nicely and have a good arc here and not have it to where it's doing this. This is bad, right? This is bad trying to go into your extruder. So you do want it to have the ability to come in with a straight direct down into your extruder and just a nice good curve. Not way too high, but that should be good. And on the back, remember we've got our little press fit connector down here. So we just need to kind of bring this around, find the good spot so that we can make our cut in the back. I'm going to use my little cutter here. This is going to ensure that I get a nice, good, straight, flat cut. And this comes down and goes into that press fit connector. Hmm. Like that. And I even have, I bet you, 3 or 4 of the clips somewhere around here that I can use. And we'll put a clip on there. And that's going to keep that from coming out. And we'll have a nice curving path for our filament. And then to make sure that this doesn't slide back into our belts, there's a spot there where we can put a zip tie. All right, cool, Monlight, that's fine. Um, I've always had a junk drawer, and I grew up in Florida, so I don't think it's a Midwest thing. Like I said, there's these little slots right here that allow you to run your zip tie, and the whole purpose of this particular zip tie here is just to keep your Bowden cable or your Bowden tube from sliding back into your belt. And in fact, if you're running all of your standard wiring, it would be used for the same thing. It would be holding your wire bundle and your Bowden tube to keep it from running up against the belts. Just make that tight. Trim off the head without cutting your belt, because that would be a bad day. And our our thing is done. So we can pull that now. And we'll add it, which goes right back there by the motor, which will be fun. Oh, I should have thought about that earlier. Push-ups for the win. Yeah, so our SD card goes right next to the motor there, right above that CSI connector. A little bit of a pain in the butt to get to, but oh well. But now we have everything plugged in. We've got our Raspberry Pi plugged in. So what we're going to do is going to apply power. Put a couple of these things away as well. Flip our power switch on. Now we've already checked the power. Do we want to turn you guys around here to, try and move you guys around here to make sure that we don't get any flippable moments from letting the purple smoke out, or do we have faith in Digital Dragon? I don't, well, I might have enough. We got enough cable there that we can turn this around so you guys can see when I flip the switch and see if anything goes wonky. All right, are we ready? 1, 2, 3. Power on. Got power on the SKR. We've got power on our Raspberry Pi. And we've got power here on the Picobillical. Yeah, bang! Okay, Timor, thank you for the alert. On to cup number 2 of the coffee. And I may sit down for a minute here because we're going to have to do a few things. We're letting that Raspberry Pi kind of start up and do its little thing. I'll call it cooking. Shouldn't be cooking, but starting up. So it talks about remoting in and using putty. So let me grab my keyboard over here. We're going to need to do a little bit of searching. We're going to be looking for this Raspberry Pi. You're just here for the smoke. Exactly, Chewy. Your build is next. You never know what magic smoke I might let out. Okay, so let's take a look at our attached devices. Got way too many things here. Somewhere down here at the bottom. Fingerbelt, Ragnarok, Flying Bear. Probably not that. Ooh, I wonder. Not seeing it yet, which isn't a bad thing. It does take a little bit sometimes because it's going to, because I gave it the name of Pi and Raspberry, it takes a little bit because it's got to rewrite all those permissions in the file system and then come up online. So your first boot, give it a little bit. The other thing I will tell you is do yourself a favor and always set it up for the 2.4 band. So I got to figure out. Always set your 3D printers up for or your Raspberry Pis for the 2.4 band. There's only a couple versions, and I think it's the 4 and the 5 that can do 5 gigahertz. And it's always a pain in the butt because you're sitting here looking and looking and looking, and you can't find it. And finally, you find out that, oh, I put it in for the 5G and not the 2.4 band. Still not showing up, which is weird. Now I've jumped up to 33 devices, so it may have just finally popped in there. What I'm doing is I'm looking for the IP address. Huh. Oh, there we go. This is the one I was looking for. So this is the Raspberry Pi that used to be connected to Black Dragon, which was my Ender 3 that I gave over to Dragon Den Site Bravo, which is Neil Diesel's house. So because I'm reusing this, my router understands the MAC address. And I was expecting it to default it over to .72, which is what Black Dragon was. But apparently I didn't do a reservation, but it did pick up the MAC address and assign it the Black Dragon name on my wireless. So I'm looking for 223. Log out here. And because we did Mainsail, we should be able to hit 223 and it comes straight up. It's going to throw an error, but that's because the printer.config is not right. Okay. So our next steps would be to go in and then set up the Clipper interface by doing Kaya. We're already there. So we're going to skip the remotely accessing and the Clipper because we're there. We know what the IP address is. Now we need to do some firmware setup. And it talks about using the Voron dock site to install Clipper firmware on the SKR Pico. So open that site up. And Clipper must be installed on the Raspberry Pi. At least one micro SD card needs to be available depending on the number of controllers. Connect the Pico to the Pi via USB, SSH into the Pi, and run the following. Where we go through and we're going to do our make files. So let's go ahead and bring up PuTTY. And what I'm going to do is do the okay, I need to give me 1 second. When I reset my scenes, I never added a scene for the full desktop display. So that's what I'm going to do real fast here. That way you can see what I'm doing. $223 was the yes. Port 22, we'll say okay, yes. And it wants us to log in. So we're going to log in as Pi with a password of Raspberry is the default. And we're in. Now, yeah, it gives us an error that the password for Pi has not been changed, that it's a default password. I would normally have changed it when I did the Mainsail OS configuration through the Raspberry Pi imager. I chose not to because this is not staying here. It is going to go to somebody else. So when it goes to somebody else, I want to make sure that it has as much default as possible so that it's not going to have an issue. And normally what I would do is a sudo apt-get update. And this just updates the repositories. Yeah, I was listening to Creatix Brit stream last night, and there was a lot of either siren, well, it was some type of sirens. I don't know if it was police or ambulance or whatnot, but there was a good deal of sirens going. Okay, now that that's done, we'll do a sudo apt hyphen get upgrade. And what this is going to do is it's going to update any of the package files that are there. And as you see, there's quite a few. I especially do this on whenever I do the Mainsail OS, because the Mainsail OS may not be fully up to date with all the patches. So it's always good to run all the patches as early as you can. And that should make it easier once we go into Mainsail. You wouldn't have as like there's been times where I've done a full Mainsail install and then wound up with like 79 packages that need to be updated. Yeah, definitely Modlight. I can do that. So once we're done doing these updates, then we'll go in and we'll set up our gotcha. You're welcome, Modlight. Of course, I'm still waiting because it's already processed that I gifted you the gift sub, but it's still like spinning because I'm That's awesome. I think me and Chris gifted you subs right at the same time. And thanks, Chris. So doing a Voron build, I'm thinking the Voron build would be rails and extrusions. With the Anycubic, you should probably be able to do like an Enderwire as well, I would think. But doing like a Rook, you would need even if you did the Rook 2020, which would be what you would use the extrusion for, you would still need a couple of the linear rods. But okay, so we've got our updates done, so that's good. Now we're going to start here. So we're going to do a sudo apt install make. Chances are it's probably already there. And it is. So we're good there. We're going to cd into Clipper. So we're in the Clipper directory. And then we're going to do a make menu config. This will give us our menu config opening. Oh no. Okay. And all we're going to do is we're going to follow the instructions that are here. So we're going to enable the extra low level configuration by hitting our space bar. Hitting our space bar in the right window. Our microcontroller, we're going to change that to the Raspberry Pi 2040. For our, don't think, yeah, there should be no bootloader. Flash chip needs to be the MQ or the W25Q, so that's correct. Communication interface USB, USB IDs, I believe we're good, and GPIO pins, we're good. So from there, we'll just type Q to quit, Y to save, and we're going to do a make clean. Even though it's first time, always do a make clean, and then a make. And it's going to take that configuration and use that configuration that we just set to build and compile that. Okay. So there we are, we're connected. The output file has been created. We jump back over here real fast. Yes. So real fast, I want to run this command here, and I'm just going to check what devices we have loaded. Apparently nothing. That's good news. Um, so it says install the jumper for the USB power. This enables the Pico to be powered by the USB and will be removed after flashing. Only use this if you don't have it connected to 24 volt at the moment. We do. Hey, Subsector, good morning. Welcome on in. We have got the wiring all done. 1 second here. So we've got the wiring all done on our V0.2. We've got our Voron tube in place, and now we're working on the software install. So to do that, I'm kind of sitting down at the moment with the keyboard in place so that we can go through and do this, because I'm going to have to unplug things and replug things along the way to make sure I'm flashing the right thing. So we've got our Raspberry Pi, we've got our SKR Pico board, and the SKR Pico board runs a Raspberry Pi 2040 chip, the MCU chip, rather than like a STEM32. We also have a Picobillical board up here, and this also runs a Raspberry Pi 2040. Hey, good morning, Zombie. So what's probably going to be easier for me to do is to reach up here and just disconnect this, the top board. So I know when I'm flashing, I'm only have the opportunity to flash this. I can't inadvertently flash this board, right? Second coffee and an omelet down, time to finish belts. Yes, and remember, there's a good video on how to do your A and B belts in the last VOD, for the last stream where we did our belts. And yes, I am also on my second cup of coffee, and this is full caffeinated coffee, and then the third cup's half calf. Hey, welcome in, Pink 3DP. Welcome on in. So it says to install the jumper on the boot pins. So we'll need to find those. So we've got a USB power pin, and then we have a boot jumper pin. Those boot jumper pins are right here in the middle next to this little capacitor. So we do need one of our jumpers. Not the one for the board, but it's the one that's close at hand. So we'll just use that one. Maybe. So once again, we're going to take this and we're going to put it on the board right above the capacitor and right next to the LED. Push that on there. And next, it says you can flash it via a couple of different ways. You can copy the Clipper UF2 file to a directory that you can access via Mainsail or Fluid by running the following command. And then you can find that, right click, download it to the US or to the PC. So we're not doing it via PC. We're going to try and do it via the Raspberry Pi. Here's the Raspberry Pi. With the Pico installed or plugged into the Pi using USB-C and the boot jumper installed, press the reset button. So the reset button, and I know I just put my head in the way. Where's that reset button? Yeah. This button way up here. So once again, we're coming down here. We're going to press the reset button. So give that a press. And that should reset and put this into a mode that we can use. So we're going to run a command to mount the board as SDA1. And that seemed to work. So now we're going to do a sudo copy. And we're going to take that Clipper output file that was UF2 and copy it to the /mount. Going to go real fast. Now we'll do a unmount. Now we'll try our ls command. Now we're going to pull the boot jumper and we'll do a reset again. Okay, what was this? Heat up the printers. Yes, exactly. Okay, I missed some chat here. Let me back up a little. Please pray for rain to stop. I have water coming. Oh no, subsector, not again. So is there another tropical storm or a hurricane coming up through the Gulf? Yeah, I left the door open again. Let's send it. Ollie almost has her belts run. Yeah, exactly. Had to redo idlers in the back. Oh no! Luke has an open door policy. Yeah, happens. How do you think I got exactly? There you go. Yeah, water and electricity is not a good idea. Yeah, we're picking on Zombie. Buying from Fabrico today. Oh, really, Zombie? I think your reign of terror has begun, Chris. Yep, yep. Rain front coming through from up north. Okay, yeah, I know we're supposed to have rain All right, I think we're supposed to have rain and like a 20+ degree temperature drop between Tuesday and Wednesday. Just realized I need to come back over to this display. Actually, let me do something real. Let me grab this. When I come down here, you can add that. You can see me as well. Okay, so we just did our update, hopefully, to our SKR Pico. And if everything went right, when I do this LS by ID, it should now find it, and it shows that we have USB clipper RP2040 and an ID. Now this is for the SKR. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that and copy it, and I'm going to open up Notepad++ or something. Notepad++. No. Give me a new document. And this is SKR Pico. And we're going to paste that UUID in. Then we're going to have our Picobillical board. And we're going to do this because we're going to need both of these boards to put into our printer config file. Right? So doing them one after the other is actually really good. So we've got that done, and the Pico is now flash and has clipper on it. So that's good. If the Pico is not powered by 1224 volt, we'll be unable to communicate with the UART drivers, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So that part's done now. So we're going to come back over to our LDO documentation, and we need to follow the instructions here to install clipper on the Picobillical. So we come over here. Thing from we're going to do the clipper make flash. And when you update clipper on your Raspberry Pi, you may be required to also update the firmware on the controllers from time to time. Whoops, ads in progress, sorry. Hey, Shadow, welcome on in. Ooh, so it's coming in around the fireplace. That's nice. Oof. Yeah, and foundation repair, I'm assuming, well, the best way to do it is to prevent it from getting into the foundation. So that's trenching around and then putting the water barrier up and then backfilling around the house. It can do it from the inside, but that allows the water into the concrete. And your best bet is to keep it from getting into the concrete to start with. Yeah. Some baked apple jam. Ooh. I got some cayenne peppers from the garden downstairs. I like to make some. Normally you can do like a jalapeno apple jam or something like that. Wonder if I can do that with cayenne pepper. So anyhow, back over here to the software side of things. We need to now do the install for our Picobillical. So what I'm going to do, so there's no confusion, I'm going to unplug the jump scenes real fast. I'm going to unplug the USB from our SKR Pico. Plug, unplug, there we go. I'm going to plug back in our USB-C to the Picobillical. Easier said than done. There we go. Okay. Yeah, jalapeno apple jam. That would be awesome. And yes, thanks for shouting out KB3D Chris. So KB3D Chris is currently building a Voron 2.4 from an LDO kit, but he's using a, it's a frame from, powder-coated frame from DLL PDF, if I remember right. Hope I got that right. It's either DLL PDF or LDD PDF. But it's a powder-coated orange frame, and it looks awesome. Okay. So now that we're back here and we've disconnected our SKR Pico and we've plugged in our Picobillical, so we can now have a communications path. DLL PDF, there we go. RND rails. Okay. We're logged into our Raspberry Pi. We're going to try and do the ls command again and see if it finds anything. It probably won't. Yep, it can't access it. So it doesn't, it's not recognizing this board. So no big deal. We're going to CD into Clipper. We're already there. So we're going to do a make clean. And what this does is removes the previous make we did for the SKR. So it's going to remove that configuration. So you want to do that make clean. On one second. And say, let's jump up here before we do that next step, because we haven't made our firmware yet. We're going to do our make menu config. And it tells us to enable microcontrollers, Raspberry Pi, no bootloader. It doesn't tell us anything on a flash chip over here, but I don't think we have an option. One or the other, so we're going to keep it the same. Communications via USB. So we should actually have the same configuration. Whoops. Yes, the same configuration. We do a queue, and it's there. We did a make clean, so we're going to do another make. We're going to generate a UF2 file. Yeah, he's testing them out. So far, I'll tell you that the color looks amazing. And the only thing that we noticed that was different was the bed mounting rails. Rather than being the same length, so you'd have 10 of the same length, and using the corner brackets to mount the bed rails, the bed rails are full length and have blind joint mounts for the bed rails. It looks great. It's perfectly functional, but it's just slightly different. So, oh, Do you have like a sweater for your puppers? So we've got that. It created a Clipper UF2. We're not going to bother copying it out because we're going to do the same type of update that we did before. So we're connected, but we're not getting a USB. We're not identifying it as a device. So I wonder, we just need to do like a reset. That light is pretty bright. Gotta use my old man eyes here real fast. Okay, so we have a reset on the right and a boot select on the left. How do we put this into okay, simultaneously press down the boot select and reset button, then press reset followed by the boot select. It should now show up in UF2 bootloader. So I think that's what we're basically going to do because we can't do the make flash because it's not recognizing the device, right? So this tells me that this board may not have firmware on it at all. So ooh, Cloudberry Jam sound. You won't let you put one on. You just wants cuddles. Yeah. You took the jumper off. So the jumper at the bottom, the only jumper on this board is to basically power it from the USB-C, but we're applying 24-volt power to it, right? Because we're actually powering this through this board. So what we're going to do is we've got two jumpers or two buttons. One's reset, one's boot select. So we're going to push both of them. Push both of them in. Then remove the reset. Then remove the boot, or then undo the boot select. Now, hopefully that just put that in DFU mode. Still not seeing it there, but we should be able to do the same thing that we did before. Which was mount it. Then we're going to copy. Oops. Helps if I put you guys on screen, huh? Yeah, so what we did was we put this in UF2 mode, which basically makes this the Picobillical board as a flash drive. right? So you hold down the reset and boot select, you let go of the reset, then let go of the boot select, and that puts it into DFU disk mode, which, or UF2 disk mode, which acts as a flash drive, right? Then we just did a sudo mount dev SDA1 as mount, which is what we just did for the SKR Pico. Same exact thing. Now we're going to tell it to copy that clipper.uf2 out, and that will copy it to the Picobillical board. And then we're going to just arrow up to get to the unmount command, which is sudo unmount /mnt, which was the mount point we gave it. Okay. Now we should be able to go up and we want to reset the board. So we'll do one more reset. We'll give it a couple of seconds to reset that board. And then we should be able to do the ls/dev/serial/by-id and get a Clipper ID, which we did. Since we know we're only connected to the Picobillical, then this ID that we just got here is for our Picobillical board. So we'll copy that by just right-clicking on it. We'll go back over to our notepad to add that in. And you'll notice that it says USB Clipper RP2040, and it'll have a serial ID which is different than the first one. So that means that we've now flashed both of these boards. Okay, and we've got the Picobillical still connected via USB. We're going to plug our USB cable in to the SKR Pico. So we'll have them both in. Okay, and if I come back over to our window here, and do our by ID again, we should hopefully see two. We're only seeing one. Let me go ahead and do a reset of the SKR Pico, since we've connected it back up. Oh, and also make sure that the USB-C is fully connected. And now you see that we're getting two IDs now. So we've got one ID there, the other ID there. So we're seeing both the Picobillical and the SKR device. So we're good. We've got both of these flashed. They're both using the latest version of Clipper. So we're good to go there. Okay. So this is the other thing that we're going to need. So the Clipper configuration. So we're going to need to do a couple of things. Let's come back to the main LDO directions. With software and firmware both successfully installed, we can now move on to adding the Clipper configuration files. These files basically tell Clipper how our printer is wired. It also contains other useful data such as custom macros, tuning values, and so on. So open your printer's web interface. We've got that already over here, other tab. You'll see an error message indicating a missing printer config file. If you followed our wiring guide, which we did, you can use our pre-made configuration files, download all the configuration files, and upload them via the Mainsail Fluid web interface. So we're going to right-click here, open that, And here's the printer config file. So we're just going to click on that. And then we're going to say download raw file. That's going to download that file. On Chrome, it says, do you want to keep it? It doesn't like .cfg files. So you got to tell it, yes, please keep this file. Now it's actually downloaded it. Okay. And are there any other? Yep, no standalone. Yep, nothing else. So coming back to the main documentation. Whoop. Where am I going? Here we are. Main documentation. So we're going to upload that file into our printer or our we've got Crow's Nest, Mainsail, Moonraker, Sonar, and time-lapse. There is no printer config file. So we want to upload a file. We'll click on that. We'll go to our downloads and we'll grab the modified. Seriously? Oh, downloads, not documents, Luke. And we'll click on that printer config. We'll say open, and it's going to load up that printer config file. Now, when we click in here, we're just going to take a quick look here and see what we've got. Uncomment, depending on your software choice, either Fluid or Mainsail. Using Mainsail, so we'll need to uncomment the include file for Mainsail. For MCU, this is going to be for our SKR Pico. Okay? So we need to come into our, hold on a second. Yes. So the first MCU is for our SKR. So we're going to come in here, and for our SKR Pico, we're going to grab that USB. Oh, apparently I added things wrong. Not be hyphen or a space there. So we're going to grab this USB clipper, copy that, and then we're going to place that right here, end of that line, where it says replace with your serial. Then for, okay, we're going to place it up here in the right spot. Then we're going to grab the other one for our umbilical. What are you doing? We're going to grab the other one here for the umbilical. We're going to put that down here where our MCU space UMB for umbilical goes. You want to make sure that your main MCU is your SKR Pico, that the one for MCU UMB is for the umbilical or the Picobillical at the top of your. Okay? So for main controller board, things to change and check, your MCU path, we just did. The Z and extruder motor currents, full steps of rotation for extruder, thermistor, blah, blah, blah. This stuff should be set already because this portion right here is kind of like the standard Voron stuff. But this should all be set, and you're noticing that the DuraPin is the GPIO, so on and so forth. This should be set automatically for this. In stop pin, the LDO Picobillical overrides this setting, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you're seeing notes in here where the Picobillical will override certain settings. So that's good to know. For now, I'm just going to save and restart. We should come up and we shouldn't have an error. So Clipper report shutdown, MCU UMB shutdown, ADC out of range. So the reason it's shutting down the ADC out of range is it's not getting the thermistor reading from the Picobillical, because even though we've told it where the Picobillical is at, we haven't given it any configuration stuff for the Picobillical. Okay, so that's what some of those other notes in there were for. So we're going to come back to our documentation here. It says edit the printer config under the MCU, replace with the SKR Pico MCU path. Under the Picobillical, or for the Picobillical, replace that for the MCU UMB. We did that. Do not mix them up. That would be bad. Now, the other thing here, coming over to the Picobillical, configuration settings for Clipper can be found here. We've bundled the settings into the file, which you can include at the end of the printer config. We're going to highlight this, and there's a LDO Picobillical config. We're going to click on this, and once again, we're going to download this file as a raw file. We're going to tell it to keep because Chrome's a pain like that. We're going to come back into our printer config file. And it says that we can include this at the bottom of the file. So I'm going to scroll down here to the bottom and see if they have a line already in here for the Picobillical. So there's a section in here for the LDO Picobillical, which is great. All right, thanks for the alert, Chris. Yeah, we're in an El Nino. So in here it says comment for the secondary controller board. This file contains pin mappings specific to the Picobillical. After running make, copy the file, blah, blah, blah. Things to chain or check. The MCU path section, thermistor type. Make sure to include this partial config file after the main controller config, which is what we did. This will ensure that the relevant sections that were called out up above are going to be overwritten down here. So what we basically have to do is uncomment a couple of things. And under the extruder, there's the extruder piece, the heater pin, sensor type, sensor pin, pull-up resistor, fan control. For the fans, we'll overwrite the fans. NeoPixels should be overwritten. Buzzer overwritten. We're not using the filament sensor or the frame or the SU pin. Sensorless homing is correct. We'll have that in here for the homing speed, homing retract. Delete. I don't think we need to undo these because we're not using an end stop. We're using sensorless homing, so that should be good to go up at the top. There's the stepper X pin for the virtual end stop. Homing speed, distance, diag pin. For Y virtual end stop. Macros for homing. Save and restart. Take a look at this error one more time. Pops up. MCU UMB shutdown. ADC out of range. This generally occurs when a heater temperature exceeds its configured temp or max temp. Okay, so this seems to be an issue where we're not getting our thermistor reading at the spool head. We're going to turn this around. We're going to make sure that our wires are good, plugged into the right spot, which they are. Wire connectors seem to be good. Connectors are properly seated and latched. Let's take a look at that thermistor again. P80 should be GPIO 29. Back over to our printer config. Just raise the temp in the config. Yeah, and that's the other thing I was going to look at is whatever the, there's the dir pin, the enable pin, the end stop pin. This will get overridden with the other section down below. So we don't need to comment it out because it gets called later on and just overwrites that setting. And the extruder, min temp is 0, max temp is 270. Just raise that min temp value up. Okay. Give that a save and restart and see if that just fixes it. Okay. Still not working. Now, one thing I want to do, page drag. Give me 1 second. I want to double check what thermistor we're setting. Yeah, so it should be that AMT Semtech. So why we'd have to raise the max 270. But it is that Semtech for the, yep. And I'm going to double check down below because it may be that the pin down here in the other section may be off. I doubt it, but we'll double check. Heater pin. Okay, they've got a different one listed here. GPIO pin is fine, but they've got a different thermistor listed than what I'm running. The 104, yeah. Give me 1 second here. So this is running, or actually, let me do Kyber Dragon, because Kyber Dragon was the one I just did that's definitely got the full LDO kit on it. Yeah, see, they're running a different thermistor. So they're running a 104 GT2, and we've got a different one in here. UMB GPIO 29 is right. Pull-up resistor is right. We've got a 2.2 kilo ohm resistor. Yeah. Save and restart. Oh. Really wish it would. Does the console no? I don't like seeing all these invalids. That's I'm going to take a look at the Clipper log and see if it provides anything valuable in here. Okay. Okay, so the extruder target temp is reading negative 17.4 C. So that's the issue. Something's still off with the um, thermistor. Hey, Poondog, welcome on in. You're taking off already? All right, thanks, man. We're getting close here. We're just fighting a issue with the thermistor, and that's why I wanted to look at the Clippy log mod light. Is the log is showing that the temperature is reading negative 17.4. That tells me that there's still something wrong with the thermistor section. And that's awesome because that is the right thermistor setting. Yes, this is the right thermistor setting. And then we came down here to the thermistor setting down here. That's the here it is. So we added it here. Got the right thing. We've got the right pull-up resistor. Uses a 2.2 kilo ohm pull-up resistor. Okay. Now something that was interesting. So additional sensors. Thermistor. This is the Frame PCB thermistor. Okay, so they're setting the stuff for the chamber thermostat. I mean, yeah, so it's not the max, it's the min. It's reading the min. The temperature it's reading is negative 17.4, which is below the min. So I have never called out a pull-up resistor. This is weird. I never Okay. And we'll set the max temp to 300. The ADC is still out of range. And like I said, I downloaded the Clipper log. And when we look at the Clippy log, bring this over here. I'm going to kind of scroll down to the bottom because this would have been the last one where I noticed it. It's loading in the whole config, right? New connection. It connects to both of the controllers. And then it does the check for the heater bed and the heater check for the extruder. And then it starts into here and it's checking the temperatures. So for the heated bed, it was, the target is 0, the temp is 25.2. The chamber temp, the temp's reading 29.0. And then for the extruder, the target is 0, but the temp is reading negative 17.4. That's why it's something with the low end, and I don't know why. And I doubt very seriously that it would be a failed thermistor already. I mean, it's had very few things that have failed right out of the box for an LDO. And if it failed, I would expect to get no reading, not a negative reading. Yeah, it does say it's an NT4. Yeah. So if I put that to a negative 50, so we're up and running. And our extruder is showing a negative number. That's what's getting me. Because it shouldn't be showing a negative number. That would be bad. So let me Hmm. All right. I think I'm going to have to work to figure this one out. And it's stymied by this one. I've never had a thermistor go negative. Yeah, that. Now, I will say there was one time where I had to redo terminations on something, and it wasn't on an E3D hot end. I'm trying to remember what that was. Working, but we're getting an invalid temp. Yeah, out of giggles, do I have, give me 1 second. Ah, yeah, both of these are Revo CRs, which would use a different thermistor. Um, should have, I should have. Give me 1 second. I'm going to run downstairs. So, what I do have is my high flow core. This is a 60-watt heater, but it still uses the 104 NT4 and has a completely, damn it. So that's not going to work either. Um, 'Cause I don't want to take that. Want to take either. I mean, I can cut and recrimp. That's going to be the best thing I can try and think of, because I have had an issue where I had a bad crimp on something, and I don't believe it was an LDO kit. I believe it was a different kit. I'm okay. But let's power down. We will um recrimp those terminations. Things moved around here and out of the way. Might be a bad batch of thermistors, but I highly, highly doubt that it's a bad batch of thermistors. Like I said, it could just be a bad crimp. Because those do happen every once in a while. Oh yeah, I'll definitely let LDO know. If Chris is still on, I'll let my reseller know, since he was the one that provided the kit. I told you guys how much I hate the fiberglass insulation on these things. Never, ever seems to cut worth it. Oh, I know they got to be insulated against the heat. It's just annoying. Okay. Now let's see if that helped. I mean, it wasn't working before, so well, it wasn't working right before. So if it doesn't help, then we haven't made it any worse. And maybe it's a bad thermistor because our temperature is still reading negative. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna have to work on this. Um, so what we're gonna do, folks, is excuse me. Um, I'm gonna go ahead and call the stream here because I am gonna have to try and work on this and possibly get a a new nozzle heater and thermistor core shipped out quickly. KB3D, I think, has left me, so I'll have to ping him if I can't get one overnighted so it's here by Tuesday, and I'll get that swapped out, plugged in, and checked out by Tuesday. Yeah, that kind of sucks. Just out of curiosity. Yeah. So something's up there, folks. Let me work on this off stream, and we will re-engage on Tuesday. All right. Thanks everybody for being here. Like I said, I will troubleshoot this. I will get this figured out come hell or high water. This printer is going to be moving on Tuesday. Everybody, I will raid out to somebody here, but I will ask that if you can, please jump over to YouTube and Charlie's stream. We see who is online. Which proper. And wow, really not a lot. So it's kind of early for us to be jumping off here. But it looks like we will be raiding over to Vile Mods. Timor. Oh, see you later. Thought you were trying to give me somebody's handle. Okay, so we're going to raid over to Vile Mods. He's doing some Nerf Blaster stuff again. So I'm going to get that raid started. Let's jump over there, but also if you can, bring up another window and join Charlie's memorial stream. I really appreciate it. Thanks, guys, for being here. We do have everything wired up. I'm going to double check some wiring and make sure that something's not loose or whatever, and then we'll get it done. We'll have this thing up and running by Tuesday. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Stay safe, and we'll see you on Tuesday evening.